Is downtown Pittsburgh shrinking or quietly reinventing itself? You're listening to TechVibe Pittsburgh, and I'm Jonathan Kirsting with the Pittsburgh Technology Council, here to give you a front row seat of Pittsburgh's technology and innovation ecosystem. On this episode, we are digging into the real story behind Pittsburgh's commercial and residential real estate trends with three people who have a front row seat to every shift, signal, and surprise. Yep, today we're talking to Ed Lawrence, Bryan McCann, and Pat Sentner of Colliers. This isn't a flyover of vacancy stats. It's a boots-on-the-ground conversation about where Pittsburgh is headed, what's actually working, and why the city's real estate story is far more optimistic and nuanced than the headlines might suggest. If you keep on listening, you're going to learn the definition of downtown is actually changing. Also discover how Class A versus everything else is what really matters now when it comes to office space. And we'll also explore what is next for investors, tenants, and the city itself. Whether you're a business leader, developer, investor, or just someone who cares about Pittsburgh's future, this episode delivers clarity, context, and a healthy dose of optimism about where the city is going next. Let's welcome the Colliers crew to the show right now. So happy to have you guys hanging out with me here in the Huntington Bank studios. We're hanging out, of course, with Bryan McCann, Pat Sentner, and the one and only Ed Lawrence here at the Huntington Bank studios. I love having this conversation. It's like our yearly conversation where we look at what's happening within the real estate here in Pittsburgh and then abroad as well, too. And I think this is a great way for us to kind of gauge just what's happening in the economy in general. I mean, there's so many indicators as to what's happening within real estate that really show us what the heck's going on. Guys, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, it's always fun to hang out, and I get to learn so much.
I'm surprised you invited us back after
Well, you know, I did get the security deposit back on the studio, so everything's fine. So,
Good to know.
There's nothing to worry about. Yeah, it's very, very, very good stuff. So, I mean, let's just jump into this. I mean, first off, it's like we're beginning a new year, 2026. It's really a great time for us to do this. Can we just start off with a general, like, what is going on right now that's really big when it comes to what's happening, let's say, in downtown with commercial, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the retail and residential type stuff. So,
well, I could say timing could not be more perfect because for about the past year and a half, I've been trying to discuss how the definition of the central business district for office space in Pittsburgh is changing.
Exactly.
And
what are the boundaries of this thing?
Exactly. So we always used to say it was the Golden Triangle, Grant Street down to the Point, and then you would stop right at the trestle that crosses over into the Strip District.
That trestle's no longer the divider, right?
Well, it is not, and and our new mayor wants to make sure that it's not either, which is great. But the interesting thing is, last week, one of our biggest landlords, Aaron Stauber, did an article with the Pittsburgh Business Times where he talked about this exact same thing that a number of us have been beating our heads against the wall for so long. You know, we're sitting over here in the Huntington Bank studios at Nova Place. Nova Place, up until a few years ago, was not considered a central business district or even a city. It was more of a fringe-type location.
A place you had to go to.
Don't have any tenant that is not at least asking, hey, were you able to check to see, is there space over at Nova Place?
Interesting.
These same groups are saying, all right, what do we have on the North Shore? Okay, what do you have down in the Strip District? And then they'll say, hey, we're not ignoring the central business district. We'll still consider it, but we also want to consider North Side, Strip District, some even into Lawrenceville, occasionally Oakland. But now, and I'm kind of excited with WS Properties taking over Station Square, I think they're going to add a vibrancy, which is then going to bring that area back into the mix as well.
I hope so, because I feel like Station Square was built on cursed ground. Sorry, maybe 200 years ago something terrible happened there, and nothing works there ever. So you have hope for that?
I have a lot of hope.
So I was lucky enough to go up to Boston and actually see some of WS's developments in Boston. And anyone who's got a chance to go up there and see what they've done, the mix of the retail, the residential, and the office, they're top notch. So I think it'll be exciting to bring them into the city. I think they'll hopefully breathe a new life into that area, which is, I mean, when you talk about a place, what other cities have that type of retail right on the waterfront.
Exactly.
Boston, which is what they're familiar with. But you got to think
great
that
to
we
know.
should be able to bring some life into that.
That's
and
exciting.
Bring some energy.
I mean,
Brian,
yeah.
Glass Houses has done well. It's performed from a multifamily standpoint. Hasn't the occupancy level always been high?
Yeah, Glass House has actually been one of the preeminent multifamilies for a long time. Right across the Smithfield Bridge. Obviously, we're sitting here too at the time where new administration's getting ready to come into Pittsburgh.
Right.
And anyone who heard Corey O'Connor on the campaign trail always talked about Smithfield and Wood Street being some of those bringing that from the south side where Glass House is, and bringing that kind of vibrancy all the way into downtown Pittsburgh. So I think as we look farther, right, that's downtown adjacent today, but we can see it as part of downtown. And we're blessed in this city because all of this is walkable, right?
Exactly
You can
right.
live in
Yeah.
downtown and you can walk to all these locations, which is something I'm sure we'll talk about, is like, do we see a little bit of a shift here where the residents want to be closer to the downtown because now I can walk not only to the South Shore, I can also walk to the North Shore and being close to all the amenities.
Yeah, it just sounds very exciting when you bring this point up that the boundaries are changing, and that makes me glad because I feel like it needs to encompass all these new developments that have happened. That's really defining Pittsburgh as being this up-and-coming, vibrant city and everything. So that has me very excited. That I just love knowing that, it's not just the Golden Triangle stuff.
No, and people say, oh, well, downtown is so unsafe. We're talking one or two streets, you know, so it's kind of tough to say, okay, well, who wants to be on Smithfield Street? Not to pick on a particular area.
Right, but it's
tough.
Exactly.
But then you come over here, and as we were talking, before we came in here, the parking garage is as filled here at Nova Place as at any point in time I've ever seen.
It's back. Yeah, it's back.
Which is fantastic, but it also reinforces this is where people want to be.
Exactly right. Very cool. Well, let's jump into more of the classic downtown area and what's kind of going on there. I think there's so much has changed, obviously, post-COVID as to who's actually going back to the office. And I feel like people are going back to offices, which, thank goodness. I remember people saying, no one's ever coming back. It's like, I don't know about that. So what is the current state of what's actually happening in, dare I say, downtown proper?
I mean, honestly, the Class A properties are doing quite well.
Good.
So the buildings that have the amenities, the buildings that
Okay.
have landlords that are able to provide tenant allowances to customize the space, because yes, people are starting to come back into the office on a more regular basis, but they're not looking forward to coming into space that was built out in 1995, 2005, or even 2015.
That could be cool again, though, man. The retro stuff, the kids like that.
Some retro stuff, but when you walk into what was probably Mike Brady's office in the early 70s, that's not a good sign to try to bring people into town. So those buildings are hurting, and I don't know the answer on those. I really don't. I don't mean to. I don't want to sugarcoat it in any
No,
way,
we don't
shape, or
want
form.
that. We want to know what's going on.
But
that's what it's about.
and I don't want to sit here and just start naming off, but there's at least 5 to 10 buildings where people will ask me, well, what do you think the answer is there? And I honestly don't know, to the point where, I've legitimately said there's 1 or 2 of them that should be scraped. And I know that's sacrilegious, especially from someone that's in real estate, but I start thinking about, if we ended up having more parks, if we had more, a soccer field or a basketball court to supplement the,
So when you say scrape, do you mean bring that building down and build something new there, or have something out, just reuse that space in a different way that addresses the current needs? Yeah,
Because
I'm all about that.
Some of these buildings, it would be, we know construction costs are high right now. So to go into a building, completely renovate it, you're going to be spending more on the renovations of the interior than the entire asset is worth. So it just doesn't make sense.
Makes sense, right? So there's a little bit, things are always going to come and go and be born and die. And we're seeing a cycle now where there's some spaces that just didn't keep up with the times.
Correct.
And so how do we reinvent downtown to make it an awesome place to live, which means you think of the residential side that's going down in downtown right now. Every year it seems like there's a few more people that are making that their home. Right?
And when you think about it, we were talking about employers wanting to bring back employees into the office.
Yes.
How do you do that? You have quality product where you
Right.
office. You have something, in many cases, that's a new development that's Class A. It, like Patrick said, it's filled with amenities. And in Brian's world, there's work, live, play opportunities with having Class A apartment buildings available, especially for perhaps some of those younger folks that want to live in a vibrant part of Pittsburgh and be able to walk to work. So all of those things are things that could uplift downtown Pittsburgh And I know, Brian, you're tuned into the tuned in is the wrong way to put it, but you're part of your clientele is focused on potential renovations downtown and conversions to multifamily.
Yeah, I think we've got to be careful with it, right? I mean, it's not everybody wants to hold it up as the panacea, as this is how we solve. There's a reality to
There
this.
has to be a reality. 'Cause, yeah, it seems great, but there's an actual making it happen and what that means and having enough people to actually go there.
Well, let's start with the logistics first. And then
Sure.
we can talk about population, right? Logistics. To Pat's point, it's really hard to renovate some buildings, and renovating certain buildings on a certain floor plate sometimes is almost impossible. Where the major
Exactly.
mechanicals are laid out.
Right.
How, do you have light if it's a residential unit, right? I mean, a big, square is not necessarily the best when you have a hollow core. So you have those issues that come. Some good news though, we're at about 6,900 residents downtown. So and why is that important? We talk about this a lot. A lot of our retailers track how many residents in a certain geographical radius, especially in the downtown market, a walkable geographical radius, right?
Right.
7,000, 7,500, 8,000 tends to be the magic number
Oh,
for
so
some
there is
retailers.
a tipping point for the retailer to be like, this is worth our time.
Correct. I mean,
Okay.
I give kudos a lot to Target.
Oh, my goodness.
Who took a chance on downtown Pittsburgh before we hit those numbers.
That blows my mind, actually.
Yeah.
God bless them. Yeah.
And one of the best performing stores. So when they took the chance and they're being rewarded for it, we hope that more retailers are going to take that chance, which is then kind of starts that snowball, right? You have more residents, you have more retailers, you have more people wanting being close to the retailers.
Yeah.
It starts that snowballer. And then also go back, think about New York City, back in the 80s when it was a little bit rougher than it is today. One of the things there is when you grow population and there's activity and after hours activity, it feels safer. When you have more people, you minimize everything else. You just have that safer feeling. So I think there's a nice snowball that's starting, and we hope that continues and kind of moves down the hill in that way.
I love it. It sounds, like I said, it's so complex, and it's I don't know. I just get excited to see all these different angles coming together.
It's encouraging.
Yeah.
And I know it's been talked about ad nauseum, but the NFL draft, as we
my
know,
goodness.
has expedited some of those improvements to downtown
Yeah.
that we've been looking for, including Market Square and the Arts Landing.
Arts
which would be
Landing is going to be
great.
huge.
How awesome
Yeah.
is that? Yeah, that to have that come here to actually make that happen on a faster time scale is fantastic, because when it's gone, that stuff is still there, and we can use that to build from as far as that is.
And I might not know where they are, but one thing that I do believe that is missing in downtown Pittsburgh are lower cost restaurants for lunch. I can tell you,
Thank
I
you.
see more people eating in the office than at any point in my 30 years of working in
Yes.
downtown Pittsburgh. I know when I was younger, we had the Zorbas and all these other places where you could get a good meal
Sammy's.
at a relatively
Yes.
speaking decent price.
Can't do that now. I
And that's
know.
the tough part. I mean, probably one of the best salad I've ever eaten in my life is over at the Speckled Egg, but I'm not going to have a $22 salad, every day a week.
Exactly.
I
It's
wish
a-
I could. That'd be wonderful.
It's a fantastic point you bring that up, how you got to start really, as people are back in, like you want them out shopping and doing things, but they don't all have millions of dollars to have lunch every day.
Correct.
So,
Which is why the nightlife, it sounds like the restaurants are doing quite well at dinner times,
Right.
but in lunch, a lot of them are closed.
well,
But
that's the other problem, is that sometimes if you do need to go someplace for lunch, it's hard to find that place that will actually be open, that's at a certain level that you want.
And it was a shame because, I mean, I think we took a look at pre-COVID, right? And I think there was definitely an energy building in the city. A lot of live music. You think about some of the places you could go on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, have somebody playing guitar, something going on, which had an energy. COVID obviously set that back a little bit. We saw a lot of closures, a lot of things happen. But now I think we're back on the upswing. So now
100%.
let's accelerate that. Let's get that back in. To your point, lunchtime and then after hours. So, for the longest time, our city was built on that it closed down at 5:30 at night, right? There was nothing residential. Being a 24-hour downtown city is great. What other city in the world, though, can you be at and walk to 3 major sports teams in 15 minutes if you're from downtown? Some of the best, arts and cultural area, all walkable
It's
from
all
our
in
downtown.
one space.
Yeah. So we have a unique, we have some really cool, even with our geographical challenges, which we could talk about with our rivers and our hills, which makes our city great. We have a downtown that makes a lot of things very, very
Well, I think a lot of that
accessible.
kind of forced that all into these areas. What I also find interesting downtown is looking at what like Point Park is doing, and getting students downtown and what that does for making it safer, making it more vibrant, and creating more opportunities. So there's a really cool mix happening inside Pittsburgh. And you mentioned there's not many other markets like us out there. It's hard to compare us then to what else is going on. I mean, what is the best comparison you think we could have?
It's interesting. We talk about our peer cities, but we all, in certain aspects where we benchmark ourselves against peer cities. And I think it's your other Midwest cities because we tend to have more in common with our Midwest cities than we do our East Coast cities. So, for example, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, those tend to be really good. Kansas City, even in some ways too, tend to be like a lot of markets that we'll look at and kind of like compare and contrast on things too. And I think those are kind of our closest benchmarks, our closest peer cities that we look at today.
Yeah, we've talked about some really interesting trends so far that I think are just very encouraging for Pittsburgh. I still hear all this talk, with all this positive talk that I'm hearing about it, I still hear, and I think it's very uninformed talk about what our vacancy rates really are on things. And before we hit record on this, we were talking about how it's almost impossible to get parking downtown most days during business hours. So we're trying to figure out, there's so much activity going on downtown. But what are the true rates? What really is open? What's not, what is not open, downtown?
I mean, realistically, you have very few Class C buildings that are doing new leases. They may be retaining some of their tenants who just don't want to leave because they've been there forever. And then you get to some of the Class B buildings that they can put together, an economically attractive proposal. But the key is you better have, employees more my age than younger because you're going to be going into dated office space, which is absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not going to be really making the Gen Zs and younger
excited
millennials
to come to work
say,
every day.
This is what I want to drive through traffic to come down to.
Exactly.
So then you look at the Class A's, and when you really factor in, other than one or two buildings that we've all talked about ad nauseum that are going to be vacant within the next 2 years, the other Class A buildings are all doing extremely well.
I like hearing that.
And
that's cool.
It is a scenario where, we represent office tenants, and candidly, it's a little frustrating when I'm starting to look at some of the rental prices associated with it. But it really does come down to supply and demand. If you're looking at the whole office market, A, B, and C, rates should be $15 a square foot. But when you take out C, you take out 3/4 of B, and then you only have A, they are in the 30s now.
Interesting.
Dear Lord, how did that happen?
Yeah.
And so that's the part and it's tough to explain that to tenants who have been in the same building, let's say, for 10 or 15 years. And
you get some surprises.
Yes, and
there.
trust me, we're going to get you the best overall package we possibly can, but you have to understand, if you're fine not getting any tenant improvement dollars, we have some really good options out there for it. But if you want to have the space customized, it's going to be limited.
Okay.
Yep.
I haven't been in the industry as long as Patrick, about 20 years or so for me, but I think it's the widest spread between A and B.
Okay,
I mean,
so there's a big
it's
jump.
over $10 per square foot.
Wow.
Which speaks to what Patrick is saying as far as the demand, where there is some conjecture and actually, macro and potentially micro in Pittsburgh, that Class A space that, unless there's more development that takes place between now and then, within the next 5 years, the demand is going to continue, where there's Class A space is going to be fairly scarce on the office side. So, and we'll just drive up those rates that much.
We've been warned.
Yeah.
We have been warned. That's why I love having these conversations.
Tale of two cities.
Yeah, no, it really is that. That to me is like amazing. I'm just curious, switching gears a little bit as we go through, because there's so many different little things to talk about, is the idea of I guess, spec office space at this point, right? So what's the status of that? What are we looking at when it comes to?
Well, it comes into play in a couple different ways. We just work with a client that is going into one of these new Class A buildings, but there's going to be a lot of construction, and the time frame is going to be long. And Brian, I'll let you dovetail on this because I know you've lived through this, but the permitting process in the city of Pittsburgh has been,
how long does it take?
Let's say, challenging.
You're such a nice individual there, Patrick.
So we are very optimistic that the new administration is going to be changing that. But in the meantime, we have clients who are signing leases working with their architects to design the space, getting ready to start construction, but
Yeah.
they can't get the permitting.
Oh, boy.
So that leads them, we're hiring people. We need to have space for that. So where do we go? And we literally just did a lease last week in space that was fully spec'd out, brand new workstations, new lights, HVAC, the whole works. Our tenant was able to move in less than 3 weeks.
Are you serious?
Yes. But
Okay.
because the space was ready to go. So that's a perfect spec space.
I was gonna
A little
say.
larger than what most groups did, but I'll give
That's a real estate guy's dream right there.
Oh,
Yes,
it's
3 weeks.
fantastic, and which doesn't happen.
You're like, exactly.
And so some of the landlords have been very successful with, let's say, 3 to 10,000 square foot spec spaces. They go so much quicker
Okay.
because a tenant could walk in and, oh, wow, this is brand new.
New, ready to
I don't
go.
have to worry about office space. I don't have to worry about furniture. And it's the furniture companies are working with landlords, the IT folks.
Yeah,
work with
everyone's
landlords.
kind of come together to make
Yes.
these spaces.
Yes.
So I'm curious. I know we had talked about before, I think in our previous discussion, that there was a trend of people maintaining their office space, but maybe as renewed, taking less space because of the idea that people won't be there all the time. Is that something that's come up now, or people?
It's not as small as we were expecting
Okay, yeah.
because you start realizing, hey, if we're having our employees come in 3 days a week, and unless you're staggering everybody, which candidly defeats the whole purpose because
right.
if people are coming in, it's for everybody to interact.
Exactly.
So if Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is between 90 and 100% occupied,
Need all the
you better
space.
have the space that you need for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
That makes total sense. Yeah.
And you mentioned spec space. I think it's a really interesting point. And Pat, I think you hit the nail on the head. So one of the things we could talk about is we talk about new build right now, right? So if you're going to do new construction, we are actually at one of the most volatile times, and I'll quantify that. Volatile when it comes to interest rates, volatile when it comes to construction costs.
The materials,
Services, goods.
and having enough labor as well too.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
So that is, it's almost like you can get whiplash by tracking it. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's really
Yeah.
bad. So what happens then when you're a developer and you're sitting here, is you're going to get these crazy swings. So anything that is protracting the timeline introduces more risk, right? Because you don't know where that's going to go. You're going to get those swings. So I think it's imperative that we get our permitting process down, because if we don't, we introduce more risk. And one of the things, we talked about all the positive things Pittsburgh has going for it, which it does. One of the challenges that we're going to face, and we talked about it, is we're at an age where information is available, which means that you can go from market to market. So now we're not just competing against ourselves. We are competing against businesses, developers looking at Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland.
Makes
so they're
sense.
going to look at all
Yeah.
that. And if they have a better permitting process that has less risk, they're going to start spending more dollars there. We need to make sure they're attractive and they're staying here so that we don't run out of good development that's moving things forward. In the
Very
city.
cool.
Brian, have we lost anything?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I know developers. I mean, anecdotal. We talk to the developers all the time, and I tell this story. There's a really good developer, and they were in a different market, and they went through to zoning, and they needed a variance. As pretty much everything needs a variance today, right? You almost can never build something exactly as right. And they went and they did their presentation, and in this other city, it was fairly seamless. They had one meeting. They said, "Hey, are you going to make it look nice? You're going to make it look nice?
Exactly.
All right, let's move this forward. This is good." Where a lot of times here, that process takes, by the time you go through different groups that all need to have their voices heard. I'm not diminishing that.
Of course.
But every time you do that and you introduce the delay, I think people are just saying,
Yeah.
we're not doing another development here.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say we lost something, Pat. It's just the ones that just say, we did that one, we're done.
Yeah,
Right?
they may not want to go through that again
Yeah,
and continue to
exactly.
invest in the region because
Correct.
of how sticky.
And I
it
will
could
give.
be.
I want to give. We've had a lot of these conversations recently, and I know that there's a lot of conversations being happening in the background. I think the new administration is starting to reach out to some of these groups and say, what are other cities doing right that we can improve upon?
I'm
So I
glad
give
to
them a
hear
lot
that.
of kudos for looking.
That's
For
fantastic.
looking at what our peer cities are doing and seeing how we can be better.
Just amazing how something can just be really just held back because of bureaucracy, right? And the idea that you can just cut through that, it's come on, let's make this a good place to do business. You maintain your standards, but don't slow it down
That's a
unnecessarily.
perfect way to describe
you know?
this.
And
That's how
it's
I
such
see
a
it.
material thing that he can affect change. The new mayor-elect can affect change right out of the gate
Exactly.
and get a lot of people on his side and his administration's
So-
side. So.
from our conversation today, I'm feeling really hopeful for what's going on here in Pittsburgh. I think we definitely have a unique footprint that we're building on here, and we have the hope of a new administration that can help us build more and be more flexible, make us more competitive. The idea we're getting more people downtown. So I think there's a lot of good things going on. As we wrap this up, what would be some key advice you'd give to anyone out there that's looking to find new space in the coming year? What should they be thinking about? What can they be ready to do?
I think the most important thing is to determine what are not only your short-term goals, but your long-term goals as well. Because if you think you're going to, let's say, double or triple in size in the next 2 or 3 years, might not be a bad idea to take advantage of some of the lower rates that Eddie was talking about in some of these Class B buildings until you really know what you're getting ready to do and sign that shorter-term lease. But if you say, man, we are getting close to where I know our goals are, and we want to create a home for the next 10 years or so, then at that point in time, really look at each of the Class A buildings, not just in the center. There's some very good buildings
As we
there,
mentioned, yes,
but
we've got some good
come
Class
across
A
the
on the
North Shore,
sides.
go over
Yeah.
CWS Properties, go down to the Strip District, go to Lawrenceville, and then really feel what location, what building can you see your company growing in long term, because you
stuff.
have those opportunities.
Very cool.
Just to piggyback on that,
Surely.
I think the clients that we work with that are forward-thinking and strategic, they're C-level folks. They realize that where they office and their corporate real estate can help to recruit and retain talent. It goes into that mix. So more and more, that's the most important strategy initiative for any group out there looking at 2026 and beyond. How do we attract the talent and how do we retain them? And real estate definitely plays into that mix more and more. So, and Brian, as far as the investment community.
Well, I was just going to
Tell
say,
us what you got, Brian.
don't
Yeah.
sleep on Pittsburgh. I'm talking about from business owners. I think we'll go out and we'll do a lot of outreach, and we'll a lot of times pitch to groups in Chicago and New York. We call it Why Pittsburgh? Why should you bring your investment dollars here or bring your business here, right? And when we're done with the presentation, everybody kind of looks and is like, why isn't everybody moving to Pittsburgh, right? I mean, you look at it, I mean, I think
We'd like to know that too.
yeah, I mean, but you look at it this year. I mean, we have the top university for artificial intelligence and robotics in the world, right? I mean,
100%.
And
We're
we've
not
had it for
arguing
a
with
long
you.
time, but now people care
Now-
about it.
now people know, exactly, and they
I
care.
think we have 4 data centers that are being proposed over $100 million.
Exactly right.
Yep, it's starting to come up that this message sometimes doesn't get out of our own bubble, and part of it is our ethos, right? We're a gritty, hardworking town. We put our nose down and we do work, and we don't necessarily go out and pound our chest and celebrate our successes. I think we need to do that a little bit more. And all the groups that are out there, and I know Pittsburgh focused podcast, but I hope other people hear it. It's come to this city and see the great things. You can set up business here relatively. We're one of the most affordable. Just got named one of the most affordable places in the nation to live. ULI. Said, hey, top growth market.
I would love to see that data because it's really.
Yeah, but it is. I mean,
Have you
compare
tried
it to
buying a
any-
house here lately? Have you gone out to eat? Okay.
$250,000 median house price.
Yeah.
That's still cheaper than most places
That's
that you can go
amazing.
to.
Yeah, that's why it just shows you how expensive everything has become.
Correct.
Yes.
What I now think is dreadfully expensive is actually pretty cheap. I guess I'm glad I'm in Pittsburgh.
And every time we
Yes.
finish that Why Pittsburgh presentation, they're like, why isn't everybody investing in Pittsburgh? I'm like, great question. Get your dollars here now before everybody else does, because
Exactly
it's
right.
going to go. It's going to get better.
And just to kind of bring this somewhat full circle, I mean, we have a perfect front row seat for that with the draft coming up, in a few months to let people see what amazing spaces we have here, because they will be in the heart of it all. So hopefully
the
that
door
gets
and
some
let 'em in.
attention
Yeah.
to some folks that are, when they say 600,000 people are stopping out, I'm like, oh my God, okay, let's have a good time. So what an awesome recap here and looking forward all at the same time. Like I said, I'm feeling really hopeful, and I love being able to have you guys hang out with me here at the Huntington Bank Studios to have these discussions, because this is where the rubber meets the road, man, for looking at what's coming up. So you guys,
Thanks for the
great stuff.
opportunity and all
Anytime.
the
Truly
great work
appreciate
you
it.
guys do. The
Yeah.
Tech Council does, Audrey and her team, for the tech community and beyond. I mean,
Thank
I know
you.
your membership continues to grow.
We do.
Which again is I think a reflection.
It shows what's going on.
No doubt.
And I said, you guys are welcome back anytime. As long as I get the security deposit back, we'll be doing this sometime very
work.
soon. Great stuff, guys. I really appreciate your time and your insight and expertise. Hey, if you want more content like this, just keep on following us here at the Tech Council, TechVibe Radio. It's been Jonathan Kirsting.